that's right. It's all in life. Gotta keep your head up and keep it straight. No time for living a lie. Gotta keep it moving till you get it right. That's right. It's all in life. Gotta keep your head up and keep it straight. No time to be living a lie. You can make it if you try. No, I heard them say life much better you live it your own way.
Greetings and welcome to Context Matters. The date is January 22nd, 2026. And if you're tuned in from Reggae Global Radio, big up to you in the United States and all of the other stations that air it syndicated. And if you are tuned in from Best FM 100 right here in Jamaica, big up to you. You might be driving home in a bus, just listening and waiting to hear what context we're going to deal with. And my people on YouTube, big up yourself, my moderator, Walking in Divine Purpose. You're going to tell them how it got Context Matters and what the GoFundMe account is and how to do what they need to do, as well as monitor the space. If you are tuned in from TikTok, tap up the screen and share the live. So this time, let me tell you something. Oh, Prince Troy asked me, who sings that song? Isaac, the artist, sings the song All in Life. It was a song that was put out in 2024. Big tune. But anyway, again, let's talk today. Interesting. I'm going to set the tone, but I must tell you, this Context Matters is speaking about rhetoric versus reality, finding where on the spectrum of power we are as a nation. Where on the spectrum you are in terms of your personal life, power, the power identity, whether domestic, nationally, or internationally. And I'm going to do it in the space of addressing domestic violence, then national violence and international violence. The definition of the violence that I'm speaking about is the oral reality. That is thinking about violence that includes verbal rather than oral. Verbal violence. It is a mental form of harm, and it doesn't always have to be physical. When coupled with physical, we address issues that as a nation we oftentimes just couple with high crime society, and we speak about gun crimes. We spend a lot of resources on focusing only on the murder rate, and not so much looking at the causes, the root causes, and attempting to fix it. What we also realize is that in terms of a culture, we kind of lose our way sometimes. And we're doing this in the context of speaking also about sovereignty, and what it looks like, what the social media space is responsible for, how it is that our leaders cause us to dance through the raindrops. And when I say leaders, I'm talking about Caribbean leaders versus just leaders on the world stage, the decision maker. In Jamaica, the leader we speak of is the Most Honorable Dr. Andrew Michael Holness. If you're thinking of Trinidad, you know her, need not say her name. If we speak about Barbados, we speak about the most erudite, the Honorable Mia Motley. If we speak about Caribbean nations in general, you'll understand the importance of CARICOM and all of that. But let's just start. I just wanted to share something with you. The jury system is the bastion of hope for citizens, the last defense against the state prosecution and anything, whether it be attack on constitutional rights, defending the presumption of innocence. And although judges are the umpire of fairness, they are also a form of the state. The doctrine of separation of powers speaks about the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive. Well, the jury is members of your peers who come to be the judges of the facts in any trial. So while it is that one may say there is no constitutional right to trial by jury, as far back as the Magna Carta, because apparently if you say Magna Carta, you can't get the point in school challenge quiz because English is the order of the day. Well, again, just bear with me in the context of how important the jury is. There is a push, there is a call, there is a cry to abolish the jury system. So much so that on Tuesday in the House of Parliament, to which I am a um, member for Portland Eastern, there was the bill to amend the Jury Act for two reasons. The first being the increase in the stipend. So jurors, when they sit on the jury, used to get $2,000. Before, back in the day, about 2015, it used to be $500 from Wapikil Phillip. Well, here it is, and in the new era of social media, you'd have to say Wapi Analyze Phillip or something like that. That's a politically correct idea. However, what I will say to you is this: the increase in the stipend to $6,000 was attached to other amendments. The other amendments would be what is known as the Sean Campbell Amendment. The irony of it is Sean Campbell's big song is Itch Snatch, Smitch, Match, Smitch, Match, and words to the effect of Pitchy Patchy came up in the debate. Well, the second amendment, plural amendments, involve giving the judge the power, whether by an application from the prosecutor, to have a trial without jury for murder, treason, major matters, as well as if the judge, on his or her own volition, found out or felt that the jury was being tampered with. So there's tampering and there's a substantial danger that the trial can't continue with a jury. The judge had the option to stop the trial or continue the trial by judge alone. Many things arose from that, and basically what happens right after that is considerations. The amendment as it was laid on the table did not include any contemplation of what the appellate process would look like. It was simply a copying of the legislation in the United Kingdom, which dealt with tampering, and many other legislations had to be amended for the amendments to work, as in the mischief that the amendment was trying to correct had to come into effect with changing other legislations and coordinating, including giving effect to any benefits coming from the Criminal Justice Administration Act, or whether sections would properly be put into that legislation, as well as the JAJA, the Judicata Appellate Jurisdiction Act legislation for the Court of Appeal, and what jurisdiction does it lie in, because the Court of Appeal has two jurisdiction, the civil as well as the criminal. And for this particular amendment, it would fall, or it would lie in the criminal jurisdiction. Most of you would have known that while after the Privy Council in 2024 quashed the conviction for Vybz Kartel and Sean Campbell, Kyra Jones, and Andre St. John, they sent it back to Jamaica. A habeas corpus was then filed, and a judge of the Supreme Court said that a habeas corpus was not the correct medium to get bail or to get the men out of prison pending the results at the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal naturally had no jurisdiction by virtue of how the legislation, no contemplation of what we would call a lacuna in the law. Nowhere in the law did it contemplate that men would be languishing in prison without no writ, no conviction, and just have to sit there and wait until a decision comes out. So there was no contemplation in the legislation. And why am I talking about all of this? Well, let me tell you. Today, what is the big shot, the media um mammoth of a case concluded. That is the trial of Noel Maitland, or if it's going to be called the Donnelly case. It is one of the testing of the new DPP, the director of public prosecution, Claudette Thompson, whom has put into history a famous quote, a famous quote that give effect to domestic violence and has some emotional connotations that I can tell you will go down in history as a famous quote in the halls of justice and the legal fraternity. What she said is Maitland cared more for the dirty settee than the missing girlfriend. Now, whether I'm paraphrasing, the idea that somebody could care more about an inanimate object than the life of somebody who you are sharing, loving, caring with must have lied heavily on the jury to think that a man would care more about a dirty couch to go wash it than to actually look about a missing girlfriend, assuming you believe that the girlfriend was missing or whatever the innuendo or inference was to be drawn from that in a highly circumstantial case. Well, I must tell you, that is a serious, heavy quote. So much so that the defense would have to come up with a wickeder line, a wickeder dub plate than the dub plate that the learned DPP has put to the jury. 7-panel, 7-member jury. Now imagine, this is a jury trial where they are saying we need to remove the jury. Well, Mr. Maitland, who is cloaked in the presumption of innocence, took his chances with the jury. He rather be tried by a 7-member jury than a judge himself or herself. So think about that. And the whole of Jamaica, well, for if you go to social media, certainly if you're watching Partner Draw TV, Andre Stevens, who is celebrating the outcome or the verdict, is that the fate of Mr. Maitland and the family of Donnelly rested in the hands of the judges of the facts. Ultimately, the 7-member jury, whoever they are, I don't know their names. I wasn't following the case that much. But to say that it was a jury trial that gave a verdict, that when I scoured social media today, the celebration or the feeling that justice was done was in the hands of ordinary men and women, as envisioned by the drafters, the Magna Carta, envisioned by criminal law, common law, that it is the members of society who are included and empowered. And if the legislation was put through, would have been given better compensation, the sum of $6,000 a day, if the legislation was passed in its form. But one of the things about legislative drafting, and any law student can tell you, when you go to Norman Manley Law School, if it's one course you don't know what's happening in is legal drafting, you might know the interpretation, but drafting legislation is no ordinary feat. Stout Boss said why he chose to give an answering statement. Maybe it was advised by his big shot lawyer. Speaking of that, in 1995, one of the most seminal cases in the history of the world before the Vibes Cartel trial, case that is, or should I say appeal, to the Privy Council. Yeah. The a famous quote was put. Like, so again, let me go back. The learned DPP's famous quote, paraphrasing, if Maitland cared more for the dirty settee than the missing girlfriend. That's a famous. Well, in 1995, in a case known as the O.J. Simpson case, Johnny Cochran, may his soul rest in peace, made one of the biggest dub play that may I tell you all right now. In anything you hear it. If the glove don't fit, you must acquit. So in that murder trial, he was highlighting that a bloody glove found at the scene didn't fit Simpson's hand, suggesting that police planted evidence and creating reasonable doubt for the jury, leading to Simpson's acquittal in the criminal case. A highly circumstantial case in the United States, high-profile case with a high-profile defendant. So it is that Noel Maitland, high profile, famous police officer who is unheard of that a police officer would ever be found on the wrong side of the law. I mean, notwithstanding that currently before the Supreme Court, 6 police officers are before the court for extrajudicial killing, the assassination and murder of a citizen of this country. And the star witness in that case is a member of parliament. Big up to you, member of parliament, who was brave enough to say that the life of a citizen of this country matters. A very profound duty to go against the grain to say that the life of a Jamaican citizen matters so much that in the seminal case of the King against Clegg, where a border patrol officer committed murder, and the question that the House of Lords, or the AKA the Privy Council, had to answer was that if police committing murder, it's no different from if a citizen commit murder. And that case is now happening in the court. So it is no stranger that police officers find themselves on the wrong side of the law, and the law is for everybody. And jurors, it is important for jurors to assess the facts. And in fact, the learned judge, Justice Pusey, Leighton Pusey, honorable with CD, OD, some big medals. So it's no, they call them puny judges, but it's no puny judge. This judge says, listen, don't listen to social media. Don't listen to Partner Draw TV and everything else that you're hearing out there. It is the facts as presented and the application of the law. Because the duty of the jury is to ensure that beyond a reasonable doubt, that you are satisfied, that you are sure, yes, that the evidence that was put to you, presented by the prosecution, and any counter, if at all, from the defense, even if you don't believe the defendant, you have to go on to make sure that the prosecution's case was proven beyond a reasonable doubt. That means there is not even an iota of insecurity. It is reasonable for you to say that the person is guilty. So when Johnny Cochran spoke about if the glove don't fit, there was evidence that was not fitting. So the response to the DPP, which said that Maitland cared more for the dirty settee than the missing girlfriend, the attorney for Noel Maitland says, if the puzzle don't fit, well, if the puzzle doesn't fit, you must acquit. Well, the puzzle in this situation, including a missing settee that a car wash attendant said was very bloody, blood like rice in the settee. That settee was never found. But the other piece of the settee was found in the house. The blood found in the house was said to be period blood or blood from presence in the house, but not sufficient blood for anybody to say that there was. And then there was cell phone technology. yes, satellite pinging, and all of the niceties that came from CFCD and all kind of something, and technological evidence to prove that you follow where the phone was and missing iPhone and all the things reminiscent of cases where when technology is presented in the case, it sometimes fall apart, if at all. Anyway, the 7-member jury deliberated today and came back with a verdict. It is a jury that gave the verdict. A jury that it is very difficult, especially when there's no jury tampering, to come back and get a verdict that, if ever so reasonable, would you would be able to circumvent that decision, unless the conduct of the law, the procedural irregularities and errors was so much that a conviction would have to be quashed. So to the person who commented and asked about whether or not, why the person gave an answering statement, I must say this: it is a ghastly risk to be put before the court and be afraid to go in the witness box, especially when you not do nothing. Ordinary people, just like juries are said to be ordinary citizens, so are defendants. And oftentimes the decisions we make not to testify come back and bite us. Many defendants would have wished that they would have testified, because sometimes the same jurors that listen to you and say, boy, me here and me can't just be suspicious. And I also think that our justice system should possibly do away with this speaking from the dock, the prisoner's dock, as if you're hiding behind something. Because remember, you have the right to remain silent and then bring you before the court. So I better sometimes you just not say nothing or go in the box and talk up the things. Right? And Lisa, yes, he was found guilty. The verdict was guilty. I guess he just came on. So that's what. So I start right there because the conversation is going to go to the public. And in it I must say to you that the public is it should be redefined to be the interested parties, because the person most affected by abolishing the jury would be defendants, who have traditionally had the right to be tried by jury, convention, custom. It used to be a constitutional right. It's not so as it is right now, but we understand the importance of it. They, just like how politicians want you to come vote, they must not take away your power of inclusion. They want you to show up and go in lines and to vote. That same voting list, you're on the voters list, you're able to sit on the jury. And when the Honorable Mr. Delroy Chuck make the amendments to the legislation, jurors will be paid $6,000 a day if they're called to sit on a case such as the one that concluded today. Now, again, the response, if the puzzle don't fit, you must acquit, is a kind of like how the artists them remix the big song them from back in the day. Like Shensia did remix Scrubs, and many people remix Killing Me Softly, and enough song. The song them will get remixed these days, especially the big song them. And if you're just born in the generation, you don't know how much time them do over song. Aaliyah, may her soul rest in peace. She did At Your Best, but it was Isley Brothers, and if you don't know music, you just wouldn't know. And many songs. I mean, Roberta Flack did Killing Me Softly, then Lauryn Hill and the Fugees did Killing Me Softly, and then everybody is doing Killing Me Softly. And if you listen to Afrobeats, so you get it. But just want to just make it clear how significant the jury is, and the people most affected this is what you call between a rock and a hard place, because when joint select committee is put together and the public is said to participate, the public, in my mind, could never be the vavavoons, the topanaris, the upper echelons of society, who oftentimes get closed camera circuits and closed trials, and who oftentimes don't even go to trial none at all. But more so, to make it clear that the protection of the jury system is, to me, an important duty to ensure that the public is involved. The common man gets to adjudicate over the people who walk up and down in the society. And if you go on social media, minus the bots, people have a lot of opinions and a lot of comments. And it's just to, Vivian, I see you. How you doing, Vivian Price? Big up yourself. Big up yourself. February is fast approaching. Your event is coming up. Big up yourself. Yeah, just want to make it clear. So I was sitting with the thought process to say, wow, what is it that how could you engage the public? Because it's not like a man who commits 13 murders is going to come to the Joint Select Committee or come in and say, hey, keep the jury, because if the police should catch me want to make sure the jury did it, so me can say that me never do it from the dock, and then them deliberate. Or if a man is a rapist and he contemplates getting caught, he's gonna say, I want to be tried by the jury because I didn't use a gun, so it won't be a judge alone trial. I must still have that option, and the jury must be there. Just be minded. So we have to think about, if a system ain't broke, don't try to fix it. You can improve it, but if it ain't broke, maintain it. Maintain it. Maintenance. Keep something. Especially, we adopted the criminal justice system. Is not like we were all opulent for a long time. We have a colonial history, and we'll talk about that soon. But again, rhetoric versus reality. We have a reality that we have to live by, and we have to think about it. And also, we rely heavily on our members of parliament who is responsible for bringing the law, and then the upper house solidifies it and everything, and then it becomes legislation that we have to live by. And sometimes in its badly drafted reality, we face with bad interpretations from law students who become lawyers, who is put in authority to interpret accordingly, and those who slip through the crack, you find absurd interpretations that lead to people becoming criminals because of bad interpretation. And if somebody's saying, but what is he talking about? I'm talking about badly drafted firearm legislation. The new firearm legislation is doing more harm than good. And if people think that sending people away for long periods is sending a strong message and curtailing murder, the firearm offenses have increased notwithstanding. And the court is being clogged, and that is not what we want. So if there ever was evidence that trial without by judge alone is the answer to administrator of justice and the speed, the gun court is not moving any faster. In fact, I'm caught in a trial that is well over a year, moving into what feels like on the second year, moving on to the second year for a trial that could have lasted a week. The delay in justice is something that one can think of as a ghastly constitutional breach. Furthermore, the strain on the court, the administrative arm of the court, the answers may just be a robust plea agreement legislation, where it's more about recognizing the convictions and quickly moving to the rehabilitation stage, by rather than trying to overcrowd the prison, the dirty, nasty, filthy prison, inhumane prisons, with citizens who may have had brush and run-ins with the law, and that's it. Good. So just be mindful of that. Now the next, so what I will say though is, well, it's a welcome amendment to have the increase in the stipend in terms of the what they call, or what the minister has coined, the vibes cartel amendment, to jury tampering. I will just take the opportunity to possibly give you guys a view of what took place in Parliament this Tuesday, in case you didn't see it. So let me start with this one. Right. So here we are. Again. Da 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 dum dum. No. Yes, is it this? Yes.
Member from Portland Eastern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wasn't going to have this elaborate setup, but then the minister attempted to scandalize the court by saying that the jurors weren't being fed. So I must defend the court to say that they get island grill, and lawyers who can't afford it would like to go and beg, but that would be tampering. So let's set the record straight that the members of the jurors are properly fed, and I see them getting island grill. I'm complaining on behalf of the defense bar. I'm not a part of the jury. That's why I'm complaining. Hopefully the minister will consider that. But it was not a bribe. But Mr. Speaker, I do rise to certainly say to the minister that no one in Jamaica would ever object to the increase in the stipend for jurors. We are a consensus other than where that is concerned. The issue that I'm now having, and I'm constrained to stand and not be short in this presentation, Minister, is that the legislation as presented creates a number of problems for competing legislations, as well as it may cause further delay in terms of the course of justice to its finality. For instance, the amendment as it now stands does not contemplate appeals in relation to decisions by the court. It actually isn't. It isn't, and it isn't for the obvious reason, Minister, that the legislation was somewhat copied from the UK legislation almost in its entirety. We, however, like you said when we were dealing with the other legislation, that we don't have the benefit of some of the other legislations, like their criminal legislation, and as well as we start from the basis of talking about a preparatory hearing. But the reality is we don't have that in our justice system. All pre-trial and case management hearings are not a preparatory hearing. In fact, preparatory hearings, there is an entire legislation in the UK that deals with that. It's actually a part of the trial in and of itself, where the issues from section 42, A, B, and even C would arise. It is during the trial before that single judge. Now, because of that, what also follows then is that we have a serious problem in terms of what the legislation is defining as jury tampering. So it's not clear in terms of how, because we are guided by the Constitution.
in the UK isn't. They don't have a written constitution which kind of restrains or constrains the judges in their conduct. What happens here, though, is that jury tampering legislation, their provisions are intended to serve the interests of justice. In that individuals accused of criminal offenses should not be permitted to escape justice through any attempt to interfere with the jury. Now, we know that, but in the Seminole case, there was no evidence of jury tampering, which would have given rise to, as you said, the purpose of this legislation. So what happens where, what we're setting up, as my friend would have said, is that we're creating situations where we can avoid or create scenarios where we remove the jury when it is a protection that the defendant who is most affected in relation to this process is not going to have the jury, because a judge may say, I am satisfied that certain circumstances exist. You yourself on your feet said the possibility of tampering. The legislation, certainly in the UK, and from how you drafted or how it is drafted, seems to suggest that there are two things that the judge has to be satisfied with. And the most important part is that there is a substantial risk that tampering occurred. And that tampering would mean that there's evidence of a threat to the integrity of the process, and that evidence would found an application under the sections as you have it amended. The election by the prosecution. I do also adopt what my friend would have said in terms of why is it that the defense doesn't have the equality of arms in terms of the election of trial without a jury. The scenario in this situation is that it may very well be that a defendant is in a particular jurisdiction and feels that when jurors are impaneled, he cannot get a fair trial, and so he wants to elect to opt for the protection of the judge when just before empanelment or something like that, as the legislation reads. And that is taken away from them, and it is also circumventing the Criminal Justice Administration Act. So as I could not support this bill as it is to be passed in the House, certainly. Now, the next aspect is that the rationale for the legislation would be that only where there is evidence that the accused is prepared to attack the process, there must be a real and present danger that the jury is also at risk. Mm-hmm. In the absence of that, the judge actually should not or ought not to have the power to simply say that we're going to elect to have a trial by judge alone. The next thing that is important then is the insertions for the JAJA, that is the Judicata Appellate Jurisdiction Act. Now, because it is absent, there's nothing in the legislation that sends you to JAJA, or there's no suggestion that the JAJA will actually be amended, which would have language that says, from the refusal of a judge of an application, from an order of a judge under section 42A of the Act, which is made on determination of such an application. There is no such language, and therefore the bill as it is now would certainly be deficient and cause similar apprehensions or scare like the firearms legislation. The aspect of the appeal, though, is, and I could ask you the question, while I humbly suggest, is the section, does it provide a right of appeal or a grant of appeal against the order? And here's what I'm saying. The order, which is made under section 42A, is it to continue? Can the trial continue in the absence? Can the trial continue in the absence of the jury until it is that the appellate process is completed. So that is important, because in the UK, that is how the legislation is set up, to say that once the judge announces, as in 42C, informs the defense and the prosecution that I intend to discharge the jury and I'm going to proceed by judge alone, you may make your submissions and then I make my ruling. After the ruling, the appeals lie with the Court of Appeal. In the criminal jurisdiction, it doesn't even say that, because we have civil and we have criminal in the Georgia, but it doesn't say that it is the criminal jurisdiction explicitly that the appeal lies. Then, Minister, that reference then would be the Court of Appeal rules, and then the notice of appeal or notice of application for permission to appeal in criminal matters must be filed within 14 days in our jurisdiction. There's nothing to say that where the judge makes the decision, as according to your legislation, that says, I am going to elect to go trial by judge alone, and then I make my ruling, find you guilty, give a written judgment, as your legislation says. But upon that, when does the time toll for the appeal? And that's open-ended. My suggestion would be, humbly, that it would have to, the appeal, the 14 days would toll at the end of the written judgment of the judge at first instance. And that would be similar in keeping with what happens in the UK. Similarly, it would follow that there must be a stay of proceedings until the appellate process is concluded. If the decision to go by trial by judge alone, and both persons have the option, both prosecution and the defense have the option to appeal the decision. At the point where we have a stay, Minister, you did say that we're trying to be more efficient. I can see the Chief Justice cringing, because these trials would then bring about some form of delay as it goes through the Court of Appeal, as it gets a date, and somebody is dissatisfied. Our final court is still at the UK. And so you can see the type of delay that would come from matters arising from this. So one wonders if this is actually improving efficiency, protecting the integrity of the jury system, or is it further clogging the court as written just now? So that is somewhat problematic. Again, with the same legislation and the election or the application made by the prosecution as the bill suggests, there's nothing to say in like similar legislation, which it was adopted from, that the judge may not make such an order without the approval of the Chief Justice or the judge nominated by him. So is it a specialized situation with the application? Because again, we do not have the preparatory hearing, which is that we have trial readiness, as I said earlier, but the preparatory hearing, we don't have the legislation to give guidance for such a hearing. So it then wonders if we are relying again on what now exists, which is directions, practice directions from the Chief Justice, or are we cementing the legislation to direct the process that we want? So while it is that I take no objection to advancing and improving and modernizing the legislation, and hope that we never would have again a scenario which took place in the Sean Campbell matter, which went all the way to the Privy Council, is that we must ensure that the legislation is meeting the object and purpose and the mischief that is trying to correct. And in the absence of correcting the appellate jurisdiction, where that lies, and in the absence of, or the attempt, not intentionally, but it has the effect of circumventing the Criminal Justice Administration Act, that it just needs to be revisited. I did painstakingly read the legislation and wondered if the member from, well, I didn't wonder. I kind of said that the member from Western St. James, West Central St. James, took no part in this legislation. I just wondered, because I know the government doesn't do pitchy-patchy work. And that person is very, and the member from West Central St. James is very pedantic and exacting. And that is a compliment. So it is not an attack on my friend. I have great respect for that member. But to say that I just think that I'm not accusing you, Minister. I'm just saying that I think that many things weren't considered in relation to where we need to go. And I'm just rising to say that I'm hoping that as a House, we're not embarrassed by passing a legislation that has too many holes, and then the general social media will say all we did was copy and paste, and we didn't have mature considerations and all the critiques that come from it. And so I'm saying it with the greatest amount of respect to say that there's a little bit more work that has to be done in relation to the section 42A, B, and C, including an inclusion and a direction of the appellate jurisdiction that would give effect to the legislation. In the stipend is attached to this particular amendment because it's a tricky or a slip slope. And those are just my humble contributions, and ask that you would consider it so that it doesn't delay what I know is much needed. And I support, Minister. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You're speaking, Mary?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Your mic is on.
That you would have heard is if you want to call it, my critique of the amendment to the Jury Act, which would have included section 42A, which is an application made by the prosecution to have trial by judge alone, having been considered by the judge would either say yes or no. Then they applicate for 42B and C, stopping the trial and continuing versus stopping the trial and ordering that a new jury be put in place. Now, I just want to say that I invite persons to do, try to, if you can, sometimes look what is going on in the parliament, because again, you may wake up one day and you think there's something there for you, but guess what? It might have been amended, it might have been changed. Amendments aren't perfect, laws aren't perfect. As I said, legal drafting was probably one of the most complicated classes at the Norman Manley Law School. But at the same time, there are also persons who aren't trained legally that is responsible. So you too would have to satisfy yourself, like how members of parliament who aren't lawyers have gotten the skill and the ability, and also through consultation and their advisors to make the best decision possible. But it is a work in progress, and I just think that we should think about that. Now, there was a response that I want to share with you, because the member from Trelawney, I think it's South Trelawney or Northern Trelawney, took offense to what I would call Sean Campbell's song, because apparently I was standing in parliament saying pitch, smash, snitch, snatch, don't test like a fool, don't test. I don't know. Clearly that's what it was, because after dub plate came back and there was what they say is a fiery exchange. the beauty about it is that people need to understand that it's work. The House of Parliament is work, and there is going to be exchange of words. But at the end of the day, no love lost, no respect lost. It is about doing the work of the country that is of utmost importance. I'm going to share that part with you, but to say that walking in divine purpose is reminding me and letting me know that I must tell you guys that you are to support the GoFundMe. And she has said that at least 3 persons. That's where people, you know what it is. There's an expectation that you will put to the GoFundMe as we continue to support the people of Portland Eastern, which includes food, building materials, and in the coming weeks, the relaunching of the tablet drive. Speaking of which, today the Universal Fund, they came to Portland Eastern and they distributed 10 tablets to 10 of the brightest students across Portland Eastern, young children, and we thank the fund, as well as the relaunching of the Wi-Fi hubs. Big up to you, as well as to the technology ministry for ensuring that, you know, the kids are continuing. 630 tablets will be given under that initiative, and certainly in Portland Eastern, the aim is to try to reach a target of 5,000 this year, as we completed 3,700 plus tablets last year. It don't stop. We need to go into the digital age so that we are not left behind. As I said, before the top of the hour, we're going to talk about the rhetoric versus reality. But to close out the first hour, here is the last of what I call rhetoric versus reality. The exchange between the learned council and member of parliament for Northern
has
Children.
had other ministers, hold on, I'm on my feet, and has had other ministers that have been equally capable and has done work that is thoughtful. The ministry does not do patchy work. The minister, hold on, I didn't interrupt you. I did not interrupt you. No, I did not interrupt you. I did not interrupt you.
Mr. Speaker, a point with the greatest amount of respect. And I said I was constrained and painstakingly. And no, I said it. I said we do not want to have that said about this house, further the ministry. I have the greatest amount of respect for Mr. Chuck, and I have the greatest amount of respect for Mrs. Ford. And I want it to be clear that I said the very attack that I'm speaking of is what we do not want for the house. I'm a part of this house. And no, I'm saying that. I'm making that clear. And I said, in fact, and I just want that to say, because we are in a social media area where persons will cut and paste, and I'm not here for sound bites. No, I was not. And I said I painstakingly said it. Thank you. But that's what I said. I was clear on what I said.
Member, you have to turn.
Therefore, yes, I want to say, therefore, that my comment is very appropriate. It's a backhanded way of introducing to the public as we speak as members of parliament that there is incompetence, it is a backhanded way of doing it. We have a minister that is, no, I'm not saying that. I am saying we have a minister that is capable, has managed a ministry, and in addition to the minister and previous ministers who have worked here, we have a technical team at the ministry that is excellent and very good and careful with their deliberations. And I want to make the point that this act that has languished in this parliament for, I think, from 2016, went through. I allowed both members to speak, and I would expect the same courtesy to be extended to me. Again?
Member. A point of order is to ask a question. Yes. In here. Yes. So, listen, we are not going to take it tit for tat. You had your chance. You had your chance. You made a statement. I don't. I don't have to hear the point of order. I am going to allow the member to continue, and you are going to take your seat. Member, you can go. Member, you can turn the mic on.
Mr. Speaker.
Member, you can sit first, please.
Mr. Speaker, I have never seen or heard of an instance where a member wishes to rise on a point of order and it is denied. I urge you, Mr. Speaker, to allow the member to raise his standing or his point of order, and then you can decide on it. But I think you have to hear him, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I would agree that the point of order, once the member rises to indicate that he has a point of order, the point of order should be heard. However, I ask the member to keep the point of order in the confines of the standing orders. A point of order is not to say that you don't like how something is being phrased. It's to make a clear designation that the member speaking may be doing something contrary to the standing order. So I think because the last time it was more of I think because the last time it was more of a conversation, right? So if you could keep the point of order clear so that the speaker can rule on the point.
All right, so we right at the top of the hour, and we're gonna go into the commercial break, which lasts for about 5 minutes. But I must say to you that the stations have their business to do. So Reggae Global Radio and Best FM, they have their duties to do. And big up my sponsors, Pure Water, and big up all the people in the diaspora that support Context Matters. Again, notice that when you're on radio, there's a lot of regulations that take place. I'm watching some of the comments, and you need to be kind because people are watching. Okay, let me put it that way. But again, for those of you, hop over to Instagram where you can see the GoFundMe link. You can see the purpose, the object, the mischief that we are trying to correct here in Portland Eastern. I never say pour water, and I say pure water. Behave yourself, walking in divine purpose. I ensure that I take my water when I go to certain places, and the water must be pure. Anyway, there we are at the top of the hour, so we will be back. It's time to do some business.
It's all in life. Gotta keep your head up and keep it stride. No time for living a lie. Gotta keep it moving till you get it right. That's right. It's all in life. Gotta keep your head up and keep it stride. No time to be living a lie. You can make it if you try. No, I heard them say life much better you live it your own way. That's right. It's all in life. Gotta keep your head up and keep it stride. No time for living a lie. Gotta keep it moving till you get it right. That's right. It's all in life. Gotta keep your head up and keep it stride. No time to be living a lie. You can make it if you try. No, I heard them say life much better you live it your own way.
Yeah, while we walking in divine, you'll be the best person to tell me when the 5 minutes is up for me to properly resume. But we're on the station break. I must say to you though, that one of the most interesting or rather intriguing scenarios that I've seen is that you would note that, you know, persons I realize in the I want to say in the social media space, it's very easy for people to disrespect, but people are so easily offended, which is why I'm wondering sometimes if social media is a space where people can do their bullying and flex their power and authority, and don't like the idea that somebody could ever respond to them in that space. Yeah, so that's what it is. I know that I'm live. I'm saying when we get back from the official station break, so I'm aware of that. So that's what it is. So just about that. Big up, big up, big up, big up. And respect for those of you who are on TikTok that's supporting and not give away gifts though. Not even prayers and taps in the giveaway. Should have reached 50,000 taps or 100,000 long time. It's just hard, Nelly, I don't want no paper lion. Nelly, no fake lions. Yeah. Tap, 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 tap. Yeah. 2 minutes for us to restart. But to set the context, I mean, this is about the legislation. Nothing else matters when it comes to the whole idea and concept of the legislative drafting. Very important. I don't know if you agree with me, but certainly that's how I feel about it in its entirety at that. Yeah. Almost there. We see I have 1 minute to get. I have 1 minute to get me to the 50,000 hearts. And big up to Alessandra Labiche and there's somebody else up there. But I need to look. And Carol J. Miller. And for anybody else that has been sending me gifts throughout this live, I appreciate you. Well, actually, Twitch, the doctrine of separation of power is real. The judges are not bothered at all by what happens in the yeah, like say I see it because I look up there and I see the gifts. All right, we're there. Well, welcome back to Context Matters. The time is now 6:05 and we're into the second hour of Context Matters. If you're just joining, whether from Reggae Global Radio, welcome back. If you are on Best FM 100, let me tell you something. this is the space where we put things in context. Many things matters, but nothing matters more these days than context. The putting things in the wrong context can cause you to really, really get in a heated fight. Yes, and don't ever forget, big up people on the TikTok. Lexi, I see you. Big up, number one gifter for the day. And those of you who are on the YouTube, continue to support, appreciate you. This is what we're doing. And those of you who rewatch or is watching on the Coda Network, blessings to you as well. So we're live all over the place. And I just want to say that we are talking about many things. The show for today is Rhetoric versus Reality. And at this point, the conversation, if you were here, there was the whole parliament presentation about the jury, talking about it at a time when, as I said, big case going on in Jamaica, verdict came in, Noel Maitland was found guilty. Two of the most intriguing closing arguments, and in the social media space, hashtag what is it, you care more about your settee than your girlfriend. Big fighting words them there, you know. So the DPP in all her glory should drop a big dub plate. If this was a sound clash, big defense respond and say, looking at the box, make we remix. It's kind of like when them having the war, the clashing at the dance hall, and everybody coming down on the massacre, and then each patch, snitch, snatch, just change the thing. Well, the defense attorney came out. I think it's Townsend, you know. Big up yourself, Mr. Christopher Townsend. He said, if the puzzle don't fit, you must quit. Remix. Johnny Cochran, if the glove don't fit, you must quit. The jury wasn't having it. You get it? Quit it. Snatch, match. So anyway, going back to my big full-on dancehall war with in the parliament, where I'm being accused of saying that the government is pitchy-patchy, when I literally said that the government don't do pitchy-patchy work, so this legislation can't pass. Well, just to continue what was said,
Mr. Speaker, the member from South Trelawney spoke about the particular amendment which I spoke about, and said that it was there from 2016. The matter in question was before the Privy Council in 2024, where I stood before the Privy Council, and I say, and the minister respectfully said that the particular amendment which I gave my contribution to was as a result of that very case. And I just heard the speaker misleading this house to say that it was there from 2016. I cannot sit and allow that. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I want to admit that the section that we're dealing with has come about in the last 2 years. But please be advised that the proposed amendment to the Jury Act, there's nothing to laugh about. The proposed amendment to the Jury Act has been under discussions for very many years and has had other ministers, hold on, I'm on my feet, and has had other ministers that have been equally corrupt you.
all right, I think we can stop right there. Yeah, so again, point of order, correction. This was remember, the amendment to the Jury Act was twofold. One for the increase in stipend. Everybody wants that. No debate where that is concerned. The particular amendment which I rose and spoke about, as you would have heard, was in relation to the jury tampering amendments to cure the deficiency that led to what people believe is the the men in the Sean Campbell, aka Vybz Kartel case, being free, jury tampering, which the Prison Council made absolutely clear that the defendants took no part in. So that is it's key. It's a key thing. So just to say, Jamaica, the legislation in the UK, know it like the back of my hand. Took me years to interface with the legislation to identify the deficiencies. So it's almost like living in the twilight zone. There is a place in the world where justice is functioning with contemplation, and Jamaica is getting up. Just like how where technology is concerned, we are far away from it, and that's how we're transitioning this conversation, because I really want to talk about rhetoric versus reality and finding where on the spectrum of power we are. So listen, case concluded, using it just as a buffer. We're not talking about the case, but case concluded, and it has elements of domestic violence in that the jury has decided that man and woman have fight at the home and murder took place. It is a repeating, same script, different cast, where women in Jamaica, violence is meted out against them by their partners regularly, leading in death. This week in Harbour View, murder suicide. Man say woman a give him bun and him just decide to take her life and honor life. Guess he didn't want to be tried by a jury or a judge alone. We don't know. But the reality is we have to deal with the reality. Domestic violence is something, because it happens in closed doors. People are so good with the status quo and the rhetoric that the power dynamics cause people to not have autonomy over the decisions that they make. Well, if Jamaica, this beautiful island, and literally beautiful island, if you had to identify it, you know right away that Jamaica is a woman. Jamaica is is not a teenager anymore. Jamaica in her 60s, clearly. But it's a woman. And what that means is, if you think of domestic violence and you think of how women who have children for men who are the breadwinners take the violence, take the beat up, take everything, and they can't leave because of the economic reality. So the woman said, why? I was having a conversation and was saying that a friend of mine who just sent me a universe on TikTok said, yeah, I knew the girl and the man was beating her, and she said, what happened to your face? You're taking beats? And she said, well, I him a pay the school fee and I him a give me the money, so right now me have to take 2 thumb. Me were good. And so when I look, oh, big up to the roses. When I look at that reality, I say, wow, many women even spend their entire life, especially if they're a part of the Vavavoms and they stay in these relationships where they're unhappy because they don't have the power to leave. And people on the outside say, but I idiot that. How you for do that? You're a full autonomous being and Shensia say independent girl or something like that. And you know, feel like you can just do everything that you want and you shouldn't sit down and take the beating. Well, that's the thing about the power dynamics, because in the house it's not easy for a woman to just get up and go, and if she don't have the proper support, she won't be in a position to escape the realities of domestic violence. Well, so it is that even domestic, it means that nationally with domestic, the things that happen in our country where the power dynamics is the state, it's a vertical. Power dynamics is going to always be vertical. So if you're in a relationship and you don't have the economic power, you can be a man and you woman and make the money, you know. You can be a Stedman and deal with an Oprah, and an Oprah have the money, and then the roles are reversed and you have to take the diss up and the beat up. And then Movada gonna say, no, you need to beat him, or something like that. Oh, no, not eating. I never know the words Movada is saying, but big up you, Movada. But the reality of it is that, guess what? We have to realize the dynamics and see where the power lies. So in domestic violence situations, the victim is the person who can't get up and leave. That is the victim. And if you know a seminal case called Aliwalia, she waited until he was in his sleep, and then she burned him up with hot oil and set the bed on fire, and they gave her battered woman syndrome. We can talk about this for hours and hours, but to say keep the theme of domestic violence, keep the theme of sovereignty, and what it is about, the integrity of your body, your person, territorial integrity, incumbent space, notwithstanding that you are married, that you have autonomy over self, maybe even over your personal bank account, even though you have a joint account, in keeping with your fundamental values and self-determination. Remember, we get in there to talk about Jamaica. So when you come outside of the house, in the world, the violence now turns into assault, shooting, murder, rape, crimes against citizens in a country. So it is that extrajudicial killings by the police is a part of that, because vertically the police is the state, and if them abusing you, and as I said, 6 police officers are on trial in the Supreme Court for murdering a ghetto youth, can be anybody's child, and a politician is testifying on behalf of the state to put those police officers in prison, because even for that politician, he could not sit back and see that and allow that to continue. His conscience, his integrity was called into question, and he stood up. He stood up to the plate. So let's deal with that. We then look at that and say, well, sovereignty, what does that mean to us? What is sovereignty to any of us? And do we understand it? Do we appreciate it? And then we start to say, well, we think about sovereignty. It is the authority of a state to govern itself, right? National sovereignty, and all of these things. And then we say, well, Jamaica is a sovereign state. We liquor, but we tolerate. And so global integration, right, has become a source of subordination. So while we tout all of the values and principles of the United Nations, that every nation, no matter how small, no matter how great, is sovereign, there are 5 nations in the United Nations that have veto power. China, Russia, United States, France, and England, the United Kingdom, 5 of them. So they are the powerhouses of the world, superpowers of the world. But then you have what is known as middle power nations. And I hope you're not bored by this, but this is what's happening in the world right now. We have to put in context. Middle power nations, or what is known as a middle power theory. It describes states that aren't major world powers but hold significant international influence through diplomacy, multilateralism, and norm setting rather than the sheer military or economic coercion. So it has diplomatic influence, niche in diplomacy, and relative power. So it's positioned between great powers and smaller states possessing sufficient resources and clout to affect global events. So a middle power country is naturally Canada. And you have to stand up in a line to get visa, just like how you have, just like the Canada, just like America. You have to get a visa if you can go there. So the UK and the United States, superpowers. Canada, middle power, but when you are a powerless nation, you succumb to the same stuff. So you think about territorial integrity, and you start to say, oh well, Jamaica has sovereignty, but guess what? The global integration and how we deal with it, it leads to what is called subordination. So Jamaica becomes subordinate, has to be obedient, and have to be careful. Remember, now, Jamaica is young girl in relation to the world, and she have to understand. Say, if she ever go out and the man, who is the man in this situation? Me not have to talk. Who must know? People who know everybody business know who Jamaica man is these days, and if she ever cheat with a Chinese man or one man from Europe, and them man they are big gun man, the one them in Europe, there are problems for you if the man for Jamaica have ever hear say you take things from them people there, you goodly get put out of the house, and you pick them can't get for go school and ride the school bus and these things because violence upon you, and not even food you can get, and no opportunities because are you sovereign? Well, think of it this way: a country that cannot fuel itself, feed itself, or defend itself has few options to protect itself. So what you see is that you have to dance through the raindrops, hoping for the best but expecting the worst. So this as the year start, there was serious hoopla about the United Nations, self-defense, self-determination, breach of territorial integrity. All of this took place with the Venezuela capture of Maduro. And there was a call on the Prime Minister to comment, but the Prime Minister said, hey, it's my duty to dance through the raindrops to make sure that we are right. And he was very diplomatic. But he never went as far as the what's her name? The Prime Minister for Trinidad, who is out there trying to get a $1 billion loan. And what happens though is that global integration has caused subordination of nations, powerless nations at that. So if you wonder where Jamaica lies on the spectrum of power, we are powerless countries. Yes. It's characterized by economic fragility, limited defense capabilities, and high dependence on external market like tourism. Experience sovereignty as a precious yet highly precarious legal concept. While international law guarantees sovereign equality, practical sovereignty for small or weak states is constantly compromised by global power hierarchies, economic dependence, and the ability of strong states to ignore international rules. So the paradox of sovereignty for weak states looks like this: legal equality versus real world power. And remember, we are dealing with rhetoric versus reality. So small states possess nominal sovereignty and equal voting rights in institutions like the UN, but they lack the power to enforce these rights when challenged. So you can say, hey, you're breaching my sovereignty. You can't do that, but nobody can do nothing. It's not like you can say, I'm going to put on an embargo on you and we're going to stop the tourists from coming in because you're disrespect with. In fact, you need visa for coming to Jamaica. That's not happening. Economic dependence will always leave that many powerless nations are heavily reliant on external aid, foreign investment, or remittances, which compromises their ability to make independent policy decisions. The decisions that your government make is not necessarily independent, and right in our face, we know that. It's not their fault though. That's what I'm getting at. The failed state dilemma. Countries that cannot control their territory or provide basic services to their citizens lose the ability to exercise sovereign authority, even if they maintain it on paper. And if you want to know the biggest example of powerless, vulnerable sovereignty, Caribbean small states, CARICOM, who is fighting among themselves and competing against other Caribbean nations to be most favored by the superpowers, right? So I don't even have to get no more where get any deeper where that is concerned. And even the small countries, some small countries have great economic power. Um, don't need to get too much to it, but to tell you, Switzerland, Singapore, Luxembourg, South Korea, and Qatar, small nations that punch above their weight. And so Jamaica, you ask yourself the question, will Jamaica ever get to a place where we're punching against our weight? When one hurricane can change the trajectory, and then you have debates between the leader of opposition and the prime minister, while the minister of finance, who is responsible for answering the question, sits in awe wondering what they're talking about, if that is so. But again, putting it in context, the appearance is what we talk about. So the idea now of what is called hegemony. So the hegemon, right? Hegemon. Well, this is a dominant state, group, or leader that holds significant political, economic, or cultural power, allowing it to control or heavily influence others. And you don't know the United States is that right now, right? And another thing about it is we're doing that in the space of what is known as hyperscalers, right? And this is the powering of the social media world, the internet, like Google Drive. So the internet world, the social world, is also a new state in and of itself. Just as Elon Musk and the Facebook man and whoever, and how they feel about TikTok. So when we think about sovereignty, it was once grounded in rule, right? It in rules guided by the United Nations, and it is increasingly becoming anchored in the ability to withstand pressure bust pipe. So when the questions people ask me on here, I just have to ignore it sometimes. So in the ability to withstand pressure is the new sovereignty. So when we're speaking about from the domestic, then we go up into the national space, and indigenous people who have status and had great contribution in the Jamaican space, such as the Maroons. They say we are self-actualized, self-determined. We have territorial integrity. We are building back our territory. We are doing all we need to do, and keeping with the 1738 treaty, a compound Maroons, and the balance of power is whether the prime minister recognized sovereignty. Well, he did go to the Akompong celebration on January 6th and said, well, the chief is a mere community leader. How that is viewed is how the balance is the balance of sovereignty, and whether the Maroons can withstand the ability, has the ability to withstand pressure. And what does that mean? Well, what you tend to find is the new dispensation of sovereignty is the strategic autonomy of sovereignty, and sovereignty has to be shared. And that's the idea of what CARICOM was. So when you think of a Ralph Gonsalves and Amir Motley, Ralph is now no longer the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines from an election. And Mia Motley, who is the strongest voice now in the Caribbean, is faced with an election in just a few short days. And the outcome of that, one wonders where the influence lies, but she has stood her ground, just like how the Prime Minister for Canada, Mark Carney, has said, listen, I am supporting the very thing that I just said, strategic autonomy of sovereignty by shared shared values, shared interests, interacting with other powerful nations, other middle nations like themselves to influence the power dynamics in the world. He has taken the stand that the territorial integrity of Greenland. He's supporting the people that live there and the other people in that region against the what the US has said. He has taken a different position. And so we have to look at that. But again, territorial integrity, fundamental values, and self-determination are the hallmarks of sovereignty. And the CARICOM, as envisioned by the previous leaders of Jamaica and the Caribbean at large, even the idea of the CCJ, Caribbean Court of Justice, paid for by the Caribbean territories, whether or not they join the jurisdiction or not, is how we had envisioned the whole Caribbean as one integrated, coming together to ensure that we have common interests and we have a voice in the world at large because of our powerless status as nations. Well, self-determination is now a questionable thing. So negotiating with hegemons from weakness simply means that we accept what is offered and compete with other nations to be the most accommodating. So when we see the pictures and our leaders say we are happy to have met with the national security representative from the first world country and we're doing what we can, and then we also said, oh, we are great partners, and then you get up like everybody in Jamaica and here, no more immigrant visa processing, so people can't get green card. Jamaica, what's happening? And before the show started, I saw something came on my phone and it just says, hey, let me tell you something, man, we are upgrade. Foreigners, when you go to Jamaica, just know, say, beware, because them have disease them from the hurricane and crime is high. Don't take the bus and don't go in a taxi by yourself because the criminals down there. And I'm like, but hold on. Didn't they say the murder rate was down, crime was down? Aren't we celebrating all of these things? Why is the United States raising the level, and what are they saying about us? And there's nothing, absolutely nothing that our leaders can do, because we are trying to be most accommodating and we don't want to offend the people that can just simply come in like thieves in the night and snatch us by our collar. So this behavior, though, I must say, as I'm talking to you about the reality versus the rhetoric. So the rhetoric is that we're sovereign nations, but here's the reality. The behavior that we're seeing exhibited by the leaders of the Caribbean, the silence when abuse is meted out against them in breach of United Nations laws and treaties that were signed by nations after World War II, because after all, we don't want to go war again. The behavior is not sovereignty, but what is now recognized by world leaders as the performance of sovereignty, performative sovereignty. That is what is happening. Because if the ability for self-determination is stifled by visa sanction, embargoes, exclusion, what else could it be? How are you going to be here domestically abusing me? Like the speaker said, shut up and sit down, boy. You will not, I will not recognize you. I have to say, let me sit down here, because when it comes to ISAT, they will suspend you, they will disbar you, they will do everything to make sure so you go live a gully side. Because a black man like me, they don't like me. He's a different kind of black man. He's a Rastaman maroon. But anyway, that how we treat our brothers and sisters when we're here, so that murders by the police, you can call it extrajudicial killing. When the verdict come in with the 6 police officers who murdered somebody, we will see what that look like. And that is no reflection on the honorable men and women who joined the JCF that want to serve and protect in this country. Yeah? So you can look at that and think about it. But how you treat, how we pass laws that affect poor people and dance through the raindrops and escape judicial pronouncements and scrutinies. because of being upper echelon. Can't happen. So the behavior is not sovereignty. It is the performance of sovereignty. And who said it better than a middle leader than that is the Prime Minister for Canada, Mark Carney. We are in a space where freedom of expression comes with great persecution. If you ever wondered why Jesus ended up on the cross, yeah, you know that there weren't smartphones back then, you know. So I don't know what them did call that. That must have been Jerusalem media. It wasn't, I don't know. But we must look at it, how we treat people domestically with the power dynamics. Because Jamaica is a nation, a woman on the world stage that is suffering from domestic violence. She want to get her own house. She want to have her independence. Yeah, she want to have her territorial integrity intact. And I would say to keep your soul intact and let nothing hold you back. And integrity is doing the right thing when nobody is watching. The ability to stand up and do what is right, even when it might be a situation where you will lose benefits, you know. And I have contemplated, I have the greatest respect for the Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Floyd Green. He's an attorney, and perhaps that's why when faced with the reality that he is going to go to court and testify as a sitting minister against members of the JCF, is doing what is right, no matter what social media is going to say and not how people is going to spin it. That's what you want from anybody, not just leaders, to do the right thing and to step up. And that is why this conversation may to some of you seem circular. But let me tell you something. There is nothing greater than having your integrity intact. There is nothing greater than doing the right thing. There is nothing greater for having autonomy about your thoughts, your actions, your conduct, and being responsible for them. And those who are on social media that is paid to be gadflies and to paint the narratives so performative sovereignty can reign in the absence of true realities, so that the rhetoric and the filters the filters like on YouTube that make me look like me now have one bump on my face. Or you reach 47, bump and blackhead and pimple and everything there, and gray hair and everything, but we don't dye it. And there's a filter to make my hair look black, but I am me. The reality versus the rhetoric. The idea of Jamaica partaking. Somebody said, do you buy pure water? Mr. Isaac can assist you with a link for a discount. More discount coming. Yes, and the idea that everything, your thoughts and your actions can be influenced because you get a little pay and you try to control the narratives socially against the reality. You go and you get a nice backdrop, but no tile not there on your floor. Yeah. For the ladies that get the press-on wig. Yeah. And you glue it in and you say, I have nice hair because you can't appreciate your 9 ether. The reality is when you turn the camera off, whether you can get a meal, whether you recognize that there are people who go to their bed at night without food, but we're talking about this idea of prosperity and billing back and how we're doing good. Schools are open, but the attendance rate at school that has 1,500 students, only 200 come because the students them gone look at work because them no one hungry. What do we say about that? There's a pastor here. Mr. Panton said, what do you say about that? Tell me now. Right? And that is what is important. And walking in the divine say, Mr. Isaac, leave my wig alone. Of all the things I spoke about, you see how the woman them defend them wig? I can see Jamaica as the woman that she is defending her wig right now. Just say, Trump, you can come in at the borders, but don't touch my wig. Don't do it. Or let me borrow yours. Let me leave that one alone. I think I'm the only one that got that joke. But yeah, these are conversations to be had about the things that matter to us. Somebody say your forehead is shiny. Is that a filter? No, just this is not. Rihanna alone have big head, big forehead, and plus, yeah. For those of you who worried about my hairline, it's mine. Don't. Let's not go there. Yeah. So, what? Oh, see there? Look at me talk up the things in the car. Them tell me check my Zelle, so the Zelle get money. Big up whoever send money to the Zelle. But yeah, this is the basis upon which I'm speaking about how we look at the spectrum of power. So that if we are there being abused on the international stage and we don't like the feeling, we don't have to be delusional. We don't have to continue with performative sovereignty. And maybe respect for a leader that gets up and say, listen, I am here to protect the welfare of my people. We are far from sovereign because we are being abused. There are things that I would like to do, but I can't because I don't want the people to be affected. I don't want to get up and tell people that we have money in the bank, but they won't trade with us because they're mad at us. I don't want when you want to go to your family because we are a nomadic people. In the exceptions when police interrupt your ability to get your little visa because they lock you up and have you under investigation and put illegal stop orders on you. The police officers know that judges are the persons in authority to put stop orders, but they chew you take with them woman, them put you on wanted list so you can't travel and go nowhere so they can watch it because they won't for watch them woman. Things like that. Abuse of power, the power dynamics, and the abuse that we mete out against our citizens, especially when we are being abused on the world stage. And while we brag about sovereignty, we deprive those sovereignty when we have the power to recognize the sovereignty, self-actualization and self-determination, right? The ability to allow persons to have their fundamental values recognized, culture, thought, process, religion, the right to self-determination, the ability to know that if you allow persons to develop their spaces, that they too may contribute to nation building in such a way that unity may come at the end when persons are allowed to freely develop and become self-actualized by their vision separate from yours. So we have to look like that, right? But I will say again to the leaders of this country, right? If we are always, because of our reality, our economic reality, have to be in a position to go negotiate with hegemons, superpowers, nations greater than us, even middle nations, we must be able to freely engage all nations without fear of persecutions from the one that want to own us up. Imagine them married and want to turn Jamaica into a side chick. And we have to compete with the other side chicks. That's clearly the entire Caribbean is a side chick. Except Guyana recently turned a rich girl because she discovered that her father did leave oil gear. And so now she are one of the vavavoons. Yeah? But the reality is that we are negotiating from weakness. And that means we accept what is offered to us and compete with the other nations to be the most accommodating. So we are negotiating and saying, pick us. And we do our photo ops with representatives of the great nations, and sometimes the leaders of those countries don't recognize us. They don't even take pictures with us. Even when we go to the G7 and the United Nations summits, we stand in the back, right? And so that is what is supposed to be the reality. We understand where we are on the power spectrum, and educating the nation of where we are on the power spectrum, to say even your managing of your social media space is important. So you don't tear down people unnecessarily. Therefore, you won't have to cause legislators to go draft legislation to curtail your freedom of expression because of the moral distastefulness of your social interactions. But values can't be real, because values and morality is performative in a society that is participating in performative sovereignty, right? Al ALM in ministry says the truth is no good for business. But you're not running a business, you're running a country with the lived human experience. The business of the country is the production and advancement of the citizens of the country. So one wonders, because when Jamaica is developed, is it developed for the Jamaicans, or it is developed for the foreigners who come here to bathe in the sun during the summertime because winter is too cold, like this AC right now? Radam. Yeah, ask yourself those questions, right? So Dred said, we are yet to really know ourselves. Well, to thine own self be true. I know myself, so I'm unbothered. So when you come on my life and say my forehead big, duh. When you come and say my nose big, so Andrew won't do. But let me leave that alone. I'm just saying to you that there are things that will be said, but again, ad hominem attacks is just a part of the 9-day wonder. Stay focused, recognize where you are on the power spectrum, know the power dynamics. In the spaces where we have the opportunity to empower our people, we are to spend every resource and every chance we get to do so. Yes? And so when I'm asked to present tablets to young people in my constituency who receive 10 tablets from the government, and know that the other members of parliament will do the same. Of course, I'm going to say yes. Of course, it's important that people recognize that when young people are brilliant, they must be rewarded. And so if the people if the citizens aren't supporting, rewarding the brightest and the best among us, rather than saying we don't like you because you're bright or you think you're bright, we shouldn't shun education, because maybe our greatest strength is the performance of our people. Maybe that's why we have to respect the Usain Bolts and the Vibes Cartels, the Shenseas, the Massacres, to the chief musician, a Psalm of David. We respect our musicians. The passing of Cat from Third World. One has to recognize the importance of what the Third World Band has done, because if you Google Third World, it says countries in the Caribbean and the famous group Third World. And so we must allow our citizens become the best versions of themselves, because power is in the people. That's all we have in Jamaica. Because the resources, when it comes to whether it be bauxite, when it come to the natural resources of this land, this island, it is the foreigners who come and take it. And so even when we look at what the economic warfare, or if you want to call it an attack on the Maroons, from a Kompong to Moortown, Charlestown to Quick Step and staff and all of them, all of the Maroons, and what it means to this country, and all of this. I just want to say, um, we have to think about who we are empowering and what is the vision that we have for this country. Recognize that performative sovereignty is our reality. It's not something that we need to accept, but how to navigate it is to anchor and partner with nations that know the value that we have. So while if it's track and field, our track athletes should never just quickly jump over to other nations because it's economically feasible for them individually, but what it means to run under the green, gold, and black, green, and gold. What it means to be a Jamaican is something that nobody could ever take away from me, much less the rest of my brothers and sisters in Jamaica. And what it is to be prideful. When I look at the Leon Bailey, yes. When I look at Shelley and Fraser, when I look right now at Oblique Civil, and the status that they get from being on the top of their professions and being sons and daughters of this country. Being a Clayton, yeah, can call them out, you know. And if I didn't call your name, I wasn't excluding you as great. But to say to you that the importance of what it means to be a Jamaican and what we should be developing and what we should be nurturing and how we should go back to Irie Jamaica, Irie man, everything Chris and Irie, yeah man, Jamaica nice. What it means to be a happy nation. So that when we look at the number one cause of death being heart attack and hypertension, blood pressure and stroke, but focus more on the murders as if that is the cause when our healthcare system is on the attack because it can't serve the public at large. These are the things that we should think about. So I end today to say that the jury system, it showed today why we ought to retain the jury. It shows today how important it is that whether you're a helper, a gardener, a doctor, a, um, a professional, a housewife, if you're on the voters list and you're called for jury duty, your opinion, your ability to reason, whether people want to say you go university, anything the way people want to behave, the empowerment and inclusion of being the judges of the fact as important as the judges who sit on the bench, and your decision is respected in the judicial system all the way to the Privy Council. And how important this is. We must never, ever, ever, ever in life forget these things. Right? And there are many musicians that do that. Of course, many, many, many of them. And if I fail to call the names, I know they know themselves. But again, we must think about the power dynamics. And I'm going to say that for those of you who stuck around and for those of you who was here from the beginning, I want to thank you all for joining me on Context Matters from Reggae Global Radio, Coda Network, YouTube, TikTok, and the recent addition of Best FM 100, a welcome partnership so that listeners can get a feel of Context Matters, a space where we are here to educate, here to learn, but most importantly, to put things in its proper context, because context matters. And we learn by asking questions, and knowledge is power. So we just cannot be going around without grasping the knowledge, interpreting, analyzing, and just having a understanding of why things are the way it is and why people react and trigger to things that have nothing to do with the subject matter or things that are germane to the conversation and the advancement of us as a nation. And just want to say thank you all for listening. Thank you for watching. Thanks for just tuning in and being a part of the discussion. The takeaways again is performative sovereignty. We need to get away from that, as well as understanding where we are on the spectrum of power, as well as when it comes to legislations, we need to ensure that we pass in the House, as lawmakers, legislators, laws that are functioning and serving the best interests of the people. Administratively, even judges, so that they don't have to painstakingly interpret laws when it could be clear from the beginning. So have a blessed rest of the week. And January is fast ending. Generally, January was the longest month, but for some reason it's going by so fast. It's truly the year of the horse. So again, context matters. I will see you guys next week for sure. And I just want to say thank you for tuning in. See you guys next week.
It took some time to understand, yeah, just what it takes to be a man. Now it seems each day you learn something to make a better way. Growing up ain't just a phase, it's reality. And sometimes it's hard to face the world with your head screwed on. But in time you will see, it comes naturally, like the hurt and the pain. It's a part of the game. It's all a part of life, to laugh and to cry. That's right, it's all in life. Gotta keep your head up and keep it stride. No time for living a lie. Gotta keep it moving till you get it right. That's right, it's all in life. Gotta keep your head up and keep it stride. No time to be living a lie. You can make it if you try. You know I heard them say life much better if it's your own way. But if you need a helping hand, just call on me, I will be your friend. And when it gets hard to face the world with your head screwed on, just tell yourself you can. And that's when you'll understand that the hurt and the pain, it's a part of the game. It's all a part of life, to laugh and to cry. That's right, it's all in life. Gotta keep your head up and keep your stride. No time for living a lie. Gotta keep it moving till you get it right. That's right, it's all in life. Gotta keep your head up and keep your stride. No time to be living a lie. You can make it if you try. You gotta keep on moving on. Don't let no one stand in your way. Gotta keep on pressing on. As we pray for better days, keep it moving. Moving to the next. When they try to bring you down, we gotta take it. Take it to the next level when they come around. That's right, it's all in life. Gotta keep your head up and keep your stride. No time for living a lie. Gotta keep it moving till you get it right. That's right, it's all in life. Gotta keep your head up and keep your stride. No time to be living a lie. You can make it if you try. Just keep your head up, yeah. Just keep your head up, yeah. Gotta keep your head up, yeah. Cause everything's gonna be alright. Keep your head up. Keep your head up. Keep your head up. Cause everything's gonna be alright.